Loke the Bard.
Lock the Bard bans all bards from his campaign. That wouldn't go over very well.
And without further ado, here are your hosts.
That's right.
Yay.
Back on it again. You know what, I was thinking about something, and I'm glad you guys have never pointed this out, but I'm very bard-like during this intro. I'm over here pointing out. I'm getting into the thrill of the battle. Arr. I am the titular pirate captain with always me bestest buddies, Bolgg.
That's me, hooray.
And, of course, Loke the Bard.
Yellow.
And we have got an exciting episode with a friend that I've been trying to get in here for some time. He's a friend of a friend of a friend who happens to know a friend. But we'll get to him here in a second. With, of course, is the obligatory things that we have to say at the beginning of every podcast. Go find us on Chef Bolgg and the Pirate Captain's Facebook page. You can email us, Chef Bolgg. Is it?
BolgandPC at
Bolgg and
gmail.com.
PC. Yeah, there you go. Because if I sit there, I knew I was going to mess it up.
Says it at the beginning of every show, but doesn't know what it is.
It's not that I don't know what it is, but I know I'm going to mess it up because I always end up saying more than I should. And it's
Facebook.com / Bolgand
PC. Yeah, Bolgand PC. It's the easiest thing you can do right there. Hey, you go find us. We're pretty active. We post the memes and stuff like that whenever there's a new episode like this one right here, which is also sponsored by our friends over at the Red Dragon Workshop Studios. If you need a miniature because yours just is worn out, it's not painted, or you just need some flair in your life, the Red Dragon Workshop Studios has you. Those guys will actually make pretty good custom 3D minis. We missed their paint party because I have prior obligations. It is Nigglewart's birthday. That's where you two are going to be held out to tonight. And there's just so much. So go get them. They're going to be able to print out not only just miniatures, but they have 3D dungeon maps with turning walls and lights at work. Go find them on Facebook. Or you can go find them on our Facebook because we share their content all the time. With that being said, it's time to get to our hosts. We've talked about these guys
your
a
host,
lot.
You mean guest.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. He's our
time
guest.
Time to get to our host. You're just going to talk about yourself for the next hour?
That's exactly what I'm going to do.
You are a bard.
I am a bard. God damn it.
I'll host if you want me to.
I mean, you could. I think you know what? I'm done. I'm done hosting for the rest of the time. That is our friend Jason. He is the host of God Mode Gaming. It's Fridays at 8 over at twitch.tv/God, GAWD_mode. I have told you guys in the past, you can watch Netflix, you can watch Hulu. It's always going to be there. But entertainment that's live, that is always ever changing, it's going to be over with our friends God Mode. Jason, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Dude, it's excited to have you. Of course, when I had Nick back in a couple months now, man, I was like, that was like the reunion I've never thought it was going to be. And then I was like, man, if we have you, then we got to have, obviously, the host of God Mode, man.
Well, thank you.
You guys' story is great. Now, like I said, I'm a couple weeks behind, so we're going to have to get the spoiler alert from our friend Loke the Bard over there. He will be he's going to have you more questions about what's happened recently, not I. But we want to kind of get into that. We're going to get into about a professional DMing. That's actually something that's very unique. It's something I never thought was going to be a thing, because you think about it, the game's grown in popularity, and now people just don't have the time to do all the DMing stuff. There's a lot into it. And you've now made it an entire job. You and a bunch of others, but you're the one that we're going to tell people that they need to hire, of course.
Thanks.
Yeah, so what do you guys...
Well, it's one of my favorite things about doing this show is we get to bring in people who do play the game differently than we do.
Yeah.
Like when we brought in, I never use a module when I'm DMing. We bring in the guys from Tacitus Publishing who publish modules to give us the rundown on how great module playing is. You know, I use a dry erase mapping system, the battle map
Theater
grid
of the
thing,
mind.
Theater of the Mind. We bring our friends from Red Dragon in who can give us the rundown on using miniatures and 3D terrain and all that kind of stuff. And when we brought Nick in, we got the player's perspective because we play live in person in somebody's house, previously in a game store. And we brought Nick. He had the player's perspective of what it is to play online and to play while streaming. Now we get to have the DM perspective and what it is to run a game online, what it is to run professionally for people, games, because that's something else we've never done. We've always done it just, running games for our friends. We've never run professional games. So that is what I like about this show, is because it expands our view of the hobby that we all know and love.
Hey, man. Good way to mark it out to us. I like it. Thank you. That's what I need. No, man. Hey, so Jason, give us a quick because like I said, I missed last night. I'm 2 weeks behind. Give us a quick rundown of what's happened recently on God Mode, so that way everybody who may want to know that this is how they're going to want to find out more about you.
Well, we do live D&D every Friday, but I'm pretty much like a full-time streamer, pro DM, and so I do prep sessions for upcoming episodes of our Friday night games or other content that I have in the pipeline that I'd like to do, sort of Monday through Friday, or Friday evenings being the actual game that we play that's specifically D&D related. So our current campaign, Lucent Odyssey, I think Nick probably previewed it for you all. That was probably back when we were doing our session 0. That is our open-ended hex crawl, Oregon Trail style D&D mixture. And so we're roughly about 10 sessions in. Didn't have a session last night just because we had one of our players out, and it was sort of story-centric, that session towards them. And there's going to be some kind of asymmetrical gameplay that I didn't want anybody to miss out on. So skipped last week. But yeah, essentially the players are moving their way through this sort of hex crawl map as they try to move from the west side over to the east side, attempting to survive. It truly is Oregon Trail. They have a wagon. Dysentery is not something
that was going to be my question. I was like, come on, he's going to stop, and I'm going to ask about dysentery.
Every other disease from the DM's guide, as well as whatever else I can get my hand on that seems fun homebrew-wise, are tossed in there. So
is cholera in the DM's guide?
Yeah, you have them like making Constitution saves just about every rest, and
they just got into. So I've tried to do this thing where this is the first time I've ever prepped for a open-ended campaign. Most of my campaigns give players plenty of agency, but they're a little bit more I don't want to say scripted, but they're a little bit more on rails. There's a little bit more of a cinematic narrative experience. The players can kind of go on this tree in terms of what they can do. They can kind of branch off a little bit, but they usually come back onto the main quest, right? They know they have the main quest, and they're happy to do that. This one, they can go wherever. So I'm prepping for it. I sort of built it out into 4 different areas. That way I can focus on each area as they go. And they have to do a thing in one area before they can move on to the next. That way I have a little bit of a barrier so they don't immediately go, we run to the end of the map. I'm like, oh, I have no idea what to do now.
Okay, so there are waypoints that they've got to hit.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they just got to the second area, which is like a swamp-like marshland. So that's the area that I definitely plan to have some con saves and the potential for some nasty stuff happening.
Cholera, the black shit, the black shit. Oh man, anything that's one of my favorite lines from A Million Ways to Die in the West. Anything that's not you wants to kill you, and it fits so well into D&D. Anything that's just not you wants you dead. But okay, so you as the DM, we all know DMs, like parents, have a favorite kid. And you got to tell us about which one of your players, and it doesn't have to be the character itself. It doesn't have to be the player. Which one of your players' characters is your favorite so far?
Character-wise, oh man, there's a couple good ones. I think I use voice mod on my Twitch when I'm doing as the DM, so I can do different effects, make my voice sound kind of fun and more immersive. And our buddy Luke, who plays a construct made from bones named Lincoln. And he similarly is using a voice mod, and he has like a really creepy sounding voice. So his character is a lot of fun when I get to hear him talk.
Oh man, that's got to be awesome. I've heard him talk. I think it is. I don't see the creepy. I just kind of like see, I don't know, kind of like that undead dude you just want to hang out with. You're like, all right, man, we'll just go start like a rock band or something.
True. Yeah,
he's got that rock band vibe. But it's crazy.
I see the necromancer from Goblin Slayer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. The character designs that you guys got, like whoever does your artwork's actually really good. Like each character is very unique in their own like certain way.
That was done by a character artist named Amanda Otten. You should be able to just punch that into Google or go over to Twitter and find her handle. She does amazing work, and we got character portraits for all 6 of our players, and they sort of really hit that. When you're running D&D, you have this image of what it looks like in your mind, and for some people maybe it's more realistic or slightly more cartoony, and this art style is kind of like really what I envision, sort of like a somewhat Disney-esque World of Warcraft somewhat look to it, and so she really did a great job. So if anybody out there wants to go rep her She does commissions too, so she may have some stuff
realistic enough that you believe it, but
yeah, it's got
cartoony enough that you can still have the fun.
Exactly.
Well, I could definitely see like the Dark Iron in down here on the left, and there's I could see the now that you mentioned World of Warcraft, it does kind of like start to pop a little bit. So I could, man, she does good work.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Is there now DMing? Obviously, there's always troubles when it comes to DM, and you're trying to get all your players together. You said so, like last night, that you had the issue where people weren't. You're losing somebody in the campaign, and it holds up the campaign. What are the other like challenges you've come across while trying to Twitch stream a game live like that?
Mostly just comes down to people being there on time. I and Nick may have talked about this, one of our players previously when he was on in a previous episode, but I try to have an ethos that this game we are streaming on Twitch would be no different if we weren't streaming it. I want my players to feel like, yeah, turn your cameras on, but otherwise you don't have to engage the chat. I want it to very much be just sort of like a home game that we just happen to be streaming. My players are very nice. They interact with the Twitch chat because I'm kind of spinning 300 plates at once and usually can't. But in that sense, sometimes we have people kind of coming in a little later, just stuff that happens that, you know, as you guys probably hear when you're trying to be professional and do your stream podcast stuff, sometimes you're like, just get here on time. Let's make sure all the equipment works, you know, make sure Twitch is running well, stuff like that. So
I don't tell people, but there is a big process when I come in here. I VT for one of the stations here that we at our lovely studios that we use, and there's a lot of pre-setup. I come in here beforehand to make sure everything's kind of like preset. I got my pages up ready with all my bumpers and my intros and the cool music that you hear that everybody loves. But yeah, no, there's like 9,000 things. It's pretty nice that you guys do interact in chat. Like I've gone in there and I've messed with Nick a little bit because, like I said, we have history from back in the day, and it's nice that they're able to kind of take into that role of being a personality because that's what they are. They're essentially stars of a TV show. That's how I've been marketing this to people whenever we shout you guys out because you guys have sponsored our show a couple times. It's nice to tell people, look, Friday nights, you need something that's different than what you're going to find on Netflix and on Hulu. How about a show that's not only do you get to interact with and get to control the story a little bit, but you also, it's new content where the stars of the show that you like, they're going to talk with you. Yeah. They're not a million miles away in California and just forgetting about you and just talking to you on Twitter. No, these guys are actually going to be in the chat hanging out with you whenever they get that few-minute break. So,
yeah, that's always nice. And our interactions on our Twitch are a little bit different. Twitch is an interesting animal because you do have a lot of the Dungeons and Dragons and TTRPG crowd coming to it, creating their games, and also trying to find ways to engage their audience. And a lot of those, in a lot of ways, help support the channel, but also will be like, buy a potion for someone for a $5 sub or something like that. And ours, I try to make the barrier to entry a little easier. They have the Twitch channel points that you can get just by watching the channel. And so we use those, and you don't have to donate any money or anything. As long as you're there, as long as the retention rate is there, you're watching and you're having fun, then you're going to build those points up, and you can use that to interact. So that's a fun way that people can engage as well as watch.
Is that something that's like keeping people like interactive with your show? Because everybody, and when we started this podcast, you know, it was originally me and Bolgg over here, and we were like, look, everybody in the world plays the game. But nobody's talking about the game. Everybody's just, oh, hey, let's go in and we're trying to recreate Critical Role and the success that they've had. Because you got to give it that. They've had amazing success.
Yeah.
Now, and I'm not trying to like dog you down because what you guys do is amazing. You guys have actually stood the test of time. You've lasted several seasons. And there's a lot of these Twitch streamers, they come on, they may be on for like a few episodes and then they get burnt out because it is a lot. It's crazy the amount of work it takes into streaming.
Well, it's probably that and just the curse of a TTRPG and keeping your players consistent and playing. I think that's just the bane of anybody, whether they're streaming or not, is just trying to keep a player base that's consistent. And that's one of the things I'm blessed with, and probably part of the reason that I thought, hey, we should put this on Twitch is because, you know, this group of friends that you find playing with me on Friday nights, they're not voice actors. They're not these paid people that will spotlight on different Twitch streams. These are my friends that I played the game with for 10 plus years. You know, we got together. I've been playing since college, but we started playing back in 4E, And then Luke ran a campaign right at the tail end of 4E. And then from there, that's when I started to decide, why don't I try DMing when 5th edition comes out? And then in there, I was like, we're all pretty funny, and I don't expect this to be a crit roll. I have no delusions of grandeur, but it seems fun enough that we could put this online, and my players seem to want to keep wasting their Friday nights coming to play with us. So why don't we put that out there and have some viewer engagement, see where this goes. So
it's worked out, man. You guys have, like I said, you guys been doing this, what, 3-4 years now? Like the actual streaming on Twitch?
Ooh, 4.5, yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So you guys have stood the time. I've gone in, I've looked.
Time.
I looked because everybody wants to be a big time Twitch streamer, YouTube streamer, and stuff like that. But you go through and you look at some of these guys that have just never, they never make it because they don't. Consistency is key. And like I said, every Friday at 8 p.m., you guys are going to be doing something, and then you've added extra content outside for when the guys can't make it up to the show. So
I mean, just with us, I was playing on Twitch just video games in character, and I've fallen off the wagon just because it is a lot. So having to also prep all of that work beforehand before going into a show, that's I bow to you, sir. You are
that's
way
one
more
thing,
dedicated than I can get.
We've mentioned we play in person. Well, when the pandemic first hit, we did try using the online systems, and while everybody was still being isolated and staying apart. And as the DM who set up those games that we played, that's a lot of work. Even with all the advanced cool bells and whistles and tools they give you nowadays, you're still spending a lot more prep time than I spend for a home game. I can sketch a map on a piece of notebook paper and call it good for a dungeon crawl, whereas you've got to upload a map and go through and if you're using the dynamic lighting feature, or if you're hiding things from your players, you have to be able to shade things out so they can't see it online. And there's a lot of prep and pre-planning. And then, for example, when we were playing that online game, 50 room dungeon, they took the one path through that dungeon. Each room had like 3 doors. They took the one perfect path where they went directly to the boss, fighting none of the minor encounters beforehand, killed the boss, and left. Maybe 15. I had spent 3 hours prepping, drawing it out in the online platform that's not sponsoring us, so I won't name which one. But drawing it out and putting, where each person would only be able to see what their character could see from the position they were at. And I spent all that time and effort, and it was less than 15 minutes, and they were in and out. And it's like, I guess we're gonna go back and sit at the bar for an hour because I don't have another map that big prepped or ready to go today.
It's a quick adventure, Morty. In and out, 5 minutes tops. That's all we're gonna be.
Well, that's the age old adage of just whatever you're good at, focus on that and do it to your best of your ability. And I've gone through life through the decades thinking, what do I want to do if I could focus on a job that is hopefully going to pay the bills? Do I want to be a baker? Do I want to be an artist? And I really, in the last 10 or so years, come around to this idea of I really love to tell stories. I really love to create worlds and use the imagination to create these vivid pieces of lore and characters that my friends and maybe some people through Twitch can interact with. So at the very least, on my tombstone, it can say, he tried.
I got to give you that, man. It's always been a big thing about me is being an entertainer. And I've enjoyed... I enjoy going out there. I work now as a trivia guy. I also DJ weddings and stuff. But radio has always been my biggest dream. I've always wanted to do big stuff in radio. Now I get to do this podcast with my friends and stuff like that. So I can respect that. You have a lot of great creations out there. There's one that I want to get into, Weirdkin. I want to save that for a little bit while because it's like, if you guys could see what I'm looking at right now out there in podcast land, it looks like Pokemon for D&D because that's what it is. It's going to be Pokemon for D&D. That's at least what I'm reading it as. Am I close or am I a little off?
It's
non-trademarked
Pocket
Monsters.
No affiliation Pocket Monster style game. Yes.
Pocket Monsters. And it says, it's like Hot Pocket, but Pocket Monsters. I don't know. It looks great, man.
Somebody doesn't know the history of Pokemon.
No, it was Pocket Monsters, not Hot Kit. You know what? Get out of here. This is why I don't like bards. But
Bag of holding monsters.
Bag of holding monsters. There you go. That's what it is. It's the bag of holding monsters. It's
I use that as a little inspiration too.
there you go. But I want to get into that here later on. But because there's a lot to get into that. But you're a professional DM. That's something that we've never had before on this show. We've had guys that have, like we've said, we've got guys that have wrote modules. We've got streamers. We're going to have some comic book artists coming up in here. They actually went and took their campaign and made it into a full comic book. I can't wait to have those guys in. A little spoiler alert. But we've never had a professional DM. And we want to give a chance for you to explain why people need a professional DM. Why it's worth hiring somebody like you to come out and do the story for them. And now's your chance to defend your job that you love, that you tried at.
Well, imagine 2022 being able to actually make money from running Dungeons and Dragons. It's still, I would even say, even now, it's still a new thing. I think you get a lot of sort of like heads cocking to the side when you say I make money from running Dungeons and Dragons. But I mean, if you think about it, the truth is, as I was saying before, the curse of D&D is getting that consistent player group and things like that. Having a consistent dungeon master, as you all have said, sometimes as a dungeon master, it's a ton of prep, and you get so far and either your players flake out or just have obligations that they can't make it to, or you as a DM, life things happen, or you just say, this is too much, I need a mental break from this stuff. So being able to pay, and it runs the gamut. There is no hard and fast rule for what you're going to pay to play Dungeons and Dragons or TTRPGs in general. But the idea is that by paying, you are ensuring that everyone else who is putting their money in to play the game with you, that is going to make things all that much more consistent because you're paying money for this. This isn't something that your buddy is running and maybe you'll be there, maybe you won't. Maybe you'll text them 5 minutes before a session and say, I got sick, I'm going to be out. No, this is pretty much going to be, you can almost guarantee in large part that those people who are paying that money are going to be there. And if you're paying as well, then hey, I've got a consistent dungeon master. He's prepped a really great game for us. And I know that all of these other people that I'm playing with, he's probably vetted, made sure they're not psychopaths or people that aren't going to be good for the game, and we're probably going to be consistent. Maybe a life event will happen, we miss a week or two, but largely I've got a game I know that we're going to play and probably either get far in or finish. So
you actually vet out, like it's not like a party, like a pre-established party of guys that are going to come in. It's actually, you'll actually combine like multiple groups of people, like multiple players from like different groups.
I took in complete strangers from the internet.
Man, that's, I don't know, like to get all those guys to work together, like how in-depth is that process to vet those people out?
The original plan, so I do my games through a website called Startplaying, and I think you guys took a look at it when Nick was here. This is a website set up to make a pro DM's life easy because you sign up through the site. The DM sets up the weekly or whenever these sessions of D&D is going to happen. And then you put your payment information in there, and you don't have to worry about paying that DM every week. The site handles all of it. And then that way, every week, okay, they're going to take my money and I get to go play D&D. I don't have to worry about it. And the site, it's sort of like, the site really tries to tell you, try to get as many people as you can in. Make it so that they can pop in, you can throw them a pre-generated character sheet, and then they can play like an hour before you start the game. That does not work that way. I've had already in the small time, I haven't been pro DMing for very long. I'd probably say about half a year now, although I did run a campaign over Patreon the previous year. But the whole pro DMing thing, doing it full time, it's been just the past 6 months. And even in that time frame, there are just some, D&D is a very interesting niche that sometimes pulls in specific people that, may not have the social skills that some other people have. And so it's important I don't really have a vetting process. I do pre-game. But if I bring you in, if things don't work out, if you're not gelling well with the party, then I just have to say, hey, you're just not a good fit. I apologize. This just isn't going to work for you.
How often have you actually had to do that?
I only had to do that. I did that. I got red flags with a player once before they joined the game and had to turn them down. And then I had a person join in on a single session. And this was a player who was very excited to play the game, but they had never been a player before. They had always been a dungeon master. But the issue that they were doing in the game as their character was they were thinking of the game as a dungeon master. And they were using their character to elicit things like, oh, I thought there was going to be this, because that's what a dungeon master would do, when the character in that world would never think that, right? And so it just wasn't gelling well, sort of breaking the fourth wall for some of my other players. And I went to my players afterwards, and I always say, hey, is everything good? Do you like the new person? And they were like, I'm not a huge fan. Maybe it'll get better. And then that's when I have to make the personal call, like, hey, this is I want to play D&D, and I want to put on a good game for everyone, but it's also my job. And I need to make sure me trying to bring one more person in for some extra money doesn't screw up the whole thing. And then that's when you have to make that tough call saying, hey, should I get rid of this person? Should I try and fix this? And you kind of have to just make that call yourself.
Did you get paid per person, not per game? How do you get
per
paid?
Per person per game.
Oh, okay.
So right now I'm running a homebrew campaign. This isn't based off of an official module or a homebrew module. This is my own homebrew that I've come up with that takes place in the same universe or plane that any of our Friday night D&D games happen. So part of the fun of that is that things that you do in this world in our private pro DM games could have little plot threads or threads from the Friday night games that may cross over into each of those games. So it's kind of a fun crossover. So for the fact that it's completely homebrewed, I do 25 per session per player. And I had it at about 6 seats, because I'm one of those DMs who actually likes to run a larger game. I've actually had my players come to me in the past campaign or two be like, you got to stop bringing so many people. Because I just want a full house. I'm like the Matt Mercer. I'm like, I want 8 people at the table.
Man, I'm not into the bigger parties.
No,
I think about 4 to
aren't.
5. I think
most people aren't. So, and I've had to do that through this. Is I've bringing strangers in, people who don't know each other, and trying to gel well with one another. I initially had sort of 6 seats for both of these Tuesday and Thursday evening sessions. I had to cut down and say the max is probably going to be 4 or 5, just because that seems to work the best. So it's been a learning experience.
Right, and it's all online, right?
All of it's online. I've exclusively played Dungeons and Dragons online probably for the past 6 or 7 years.
Now, when you're doing these private session games, how many of the tools from your streaming show are you pulling over? Like, I know for the big bug guy from your last episode, you're using like voice modulation and
I
stuff,
try to
and
do.
You've always got background music going. And
As much of that is outside of the stuff that's obviously not going to be there, like the people interacting with the Twitch channel points and stuff like that. Everything else is there. I tell people what you're seeing on stream here with me doing the funky voices with the voice mod, the music in the background. If anything, I have more leeway because I don't have that scary,
cease and desist.
Yeah, the C&D in terms of the Twitch chat or the Twitch content stuff. I say we can do all kinds of music. I get to pick whatever I want in our private sessions. I can use whatever art I want because I've tried to do a more professional stream on Twitch where we sort of kick away.
I've said lots of times on the show, there is no copyright at a private table.
Right.
All I'm saying is I'm a cop and this is it. I finally busted you. No, it's crazy. And so you're getting all these players, 25 per session. That's crazy. How many sessions in a week do you do?
Right now, it's just the Tuesday and Thursday evening game.
Oh, okay. Hey, we're talking with Jason. He is a professional game master. He's also the game master of for the Twitch channel God Mode Gaming, GAWD_mode, MODE, where you guys can always catch them. Fridays is the show to watch. All right, that's the Lucent Odyssey. It's your very fun, very interesting campaign where you as a Twitch streamer or Twitch watcher, because you're not the streamer, Twitch watcher. I don't know, what are they? Twatcher. You're a twatcher, and you guys can actually interact with them. But we're trying to pick his brain about being a professional DM. These things, they're just starting to pop up. Startplaying.games, and you can go and find all sorts of the guys that you want. But you're going to go find our guy, Jason, here at God Mode. That's what you're going to do if you listen to this. How, are you getting people from, all over the world, all over the states? Where's the farthest player you've had from, obviously, your central location here in Tampa, in Florida?
I get people all over the world for our Twitch itself, but I think specifically for our Start Playing games because of the time frame. I run my games at 8 p.m. Eastern time. I think most of my players are within the states or along this time zone, maybe, an hour or two off. I see that's part of the thing. I always try to check in with my players and get to know them a little bit before the games, but I don't really know where everyone lives. But it seems like I think most people are bound here to the States or somewhere close within an hour or two difference of the time zone.
That's not bad. It's crazy because, like you were saying earlier, nobody thought a few years ago that I'd say pre-pandemic, that there would be a professional DM anything. Like we've played with other players. Oh, I was paid to go to these cons and do this, but it's like, okay. But now it's starting to come out. You guys you're creating a whole story for people out of there. And like he asked about how much of it do you bring over from Twitch? How much of the stories that you tell on Friday kind of leak into some of the stuff that you're doing with these campaigns?
Whatever has been established in the world that the players explore, and our game, the setting for it is largely Spelljammer centric, which for those who played D&D probably saw that new 5th edition content for Spelljammer come out a couple months back. That's essentially where you can hop into a ship and using magic go fly out in space. It's sort of like think Treasure Island and stuff like that. That's essentially what we do here. So there's anything those players in those start playing games, the pro DM games, go and explore. Whatever's happened in our Friday night games or vice versa is going to happen. So it's going to be the same for the other players. So we had a huge explosion happen in one of these more advanced cities that's almost like a Shadowrun style city because of the technology there. In our Friday night games, I don't know, a year or two ago in the story, which of course your D&D timeline and real timeline is usually very different.
Yeah.
So a whole year there has just probably been about a month in the game. Those players from my Start Playing games went to that planet to begin building a relationship with one of the big factions of our worlds. And they found the same large crater from where the explosion happened, and the story just continued from there.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so there's a lot of crossover, and I'm even building it so that there's kind of some fun crossover between the two pro DM campaigns that they don't necessarily know about.
He's the Netflix series of the Marvel Universe is what he's doing. The Start Playing is like all the Netflixes. We're going to have Daredevil and Luke Cage, but then they're going to did you guys see Iron Man flying out the window? Man, you should have seen that. And they never show.
Show us Daredevil.
I want to see Daredevil. You know what? Let's take that back. I'm not getting into that one. I don't want to get into that one. Charlie Cox, man. Come on. There's a lot there. I could get into a whole conversation itself on the Marvel Cinematic
We'll do that
Universe.
off.
Yeah. So the Rise of Wildnut, is that how you pronounce it? Wildnut? All right. Yep. So that's the campaign that people can go sign up for. You got one seat left, and some rave reviews for our good friend Jason. You make all your stuff, and Nick was telling us, you make all the tokens like every week and stuff like that. How much time in a day do you spend preparing for like the next day?
Well, I've made this a thing where I've quit my day job to focus on being a pro DM as well as streaming full time, and still trying to make that a thing that's feasible. But there's plenty of hours on stream since my Twitch stream is focused as a TTRPG stream. So there's at least 4 hours Monday through Thursday that I focus on doing that content. But outside of that, I mean, as I said before, it's my passion. It's what I think I'm the best at, which may not be the conventional thing. But so I put a lot of focus into it. So at least 4 hours for 4 days of the week, plus whatever else I do outside of that, which I'm sure is probably another 10 plus hours. Who knows?
Oh man, I'm having a hard enough time finding 2 hours for myself, let alone finding 4 hours to create on something.
Just quit your day job, make a way less money than a 9 to 5, and you too can focus on being a pro DM.
Yeah, let me tell you about my day job. All this nice little fancy stuff that we have right here with the cool sounds and the things. Yeah, well, let me go ahead and just boot that. So if this thing can start making me money, that's all I need.
That money would go paying for the new studio.
Yeah, maybe if I could. You can donate to our imaginary funds out there. Oh, no, it's being a podcaster and a streamer. It's a lot of like you're just trying to make that big break, telling stories, man. And obviously that's your thing. I couldn't tell stories like you. I'm just there to be an entertainer. I try to make sure that when people like tune into us, they know that they're going to get some off-color jokes, some bad comedy, and that I'm going to say that how much I hate the bards every episode, because bards are just terrible, nasty creatures.
Even though you've been infected with the Bard STD and are slowly becoming one.
Yeah, that's. I mean, that's all we are by nature. I hate both of you so much right now. I mean, that's all we are. Is essentially bards are. We're living creatures of bards, or living creations of bards. I mean, you're telling the stories there on Twitch, and we're out here telling stories over the audio form that somebody's going to listen to and go, "That guy just sucks. Can we just get rid of him and make it just a Bolgg and Loke show or something like that?" I don't know.
Oh, you haven't seen the new logo, have you?
I have not seen the new. There's no new logo. All right, no, we're not doing that. These people are going to miss their favorite pirate
just
captain.
Photoshop scrubbed your name out of it. Said it.
Oh, he wouldn't even Photoshop it. He'd log back in and go, "Yeah, we're just going to go ahead and get rid of that."
It'll just say Chef Bolgg and blank recipes for everything.
Oh, we've had our own talks about we have our pillars of play, and you have your pillars of D&D, and so to explain to what our pillars of play are is we've looked at it. It was probably the most ingenious thing I've ever heard come out of a bard's mouth, was that each one of us represents some sort of natural phenomenon in the law of order. You have the pillar of chaos, the pillar of stupidity, and the pillar of control. Is that right?
Order,
control, order, whatever.
The pillar of chaos would call that the pillar of control.
Yeah, it's the pillar of control. And what it says is if you have the pillar of chaos, that's unpredictable. They're just going to come in. It's the basis of chaotic neutral. When they're just, I wouldn't even call it chaotic neutral. That's another topic for another time. But they live and breathe and just, I'm going to go set fire to something and see what happens. It could work out.
I'm going to rob this shopkeeper because it's not real. This is a fantasy world and I can do whatever I want.
I wouldn't say that. I have legit reason for robbing him. Like I want whatever he has. And you have the pillar of order, which is trying to maintain the balance of the world. They want to see everything kind of line up, that there is a little bit. And then you have, of course, the pillar of stupidity that
I bash into God's brains. Why? Fuck him.
Yeah, you would think that that's chaos, but that's not chaos. No. That's just
and then he goes into bashing the guard's brain, and the guard's a level 20. You're a little level 5.
Yeah,
that's the pillar of stupidity.
That's the pillar of stupidity. But you have these 3 pillars of D&D, and you call them exploration, social interaction, and combat. Like, how do you maintain all 3 of those on keeping the balance in between the world? There has to be balance between the 3 of our styles. That kind of keeps the campaign focused, so you're not just like leaning more towards me and everything's kind of like there's a whole trail of fire behind you as you walk, versus maybe too much control and no one's kind of like having there's nothing exciting happening in the game.
The game completely winds up on the rails and scripted. You might as well be reading a novel.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. So how do you balance your 3 pillars: exploration, social interaction, and combat per game? Because that's got to be hard.
Those 3 are directly from the Dungeons Master's Guide, and that's sort of the key that they considered to the large components of a D&D game. And I put that on my Start Playing profile in terms of something that could be malleable and change in terms of the hierarchy of importance of those 3 pillars, because unlike the people that I play with on Friday nights who are my friends, I know them incredibly well. I know that they have a preference for a lot of role play, but they also love combat, and exploration they still enjoy it, but maybe not as important as those 2. Whereas these people that I bring in from anywhere across the internet, they could have any number of engaging ways that they want to play with the game between those 3 pillars. So I made a point to mention that my game is going to try to be balanced with those 3. And then as the players come in to play my Pro DM games, that can start to shift as I begin to learn more about them as a player character in this world and what they personally enjoy. If they are really big on role play, then I want to make this a game tailored around them, so you're going to find more role play opportunities. If they're like, I really love to just level up, get new abilities, and bash the crap out of stuff, then we're going to have more combat, or at least a fairer amount of combat each session. So that's why I try to keep those things balanced and modified depending on who's coming to play with me in those games.
On average, are you finding more murder hobos or people who just want to like role play?
I think so far between the two groups that I have, that Tuesday and Thursday group, it's actually pretty balanced. I don't think that they're leaning any particular way. I'd say my Thursday group somehow is just this fantastic group of players who not only work together well, they role play a lot. So I think that's going to be a larger focus, but they're also just a great group because they make knowledge checks, which I feel like my friends who I played D&D with for 10 years, I could take some tips from this group that just started playing with me 2 months back. I'd be like, guys, you can roll. You can check before you step on this thing, before you stick your finger in here. You can make those checks if you want.
No, stick your finger in there, Bolgg.
That's how they
The
are.
Pillar of stupidity.
Yeah.
There you go.
There is a pillar of stupidity in our Friday night games. Then,
But it's fun.
It
It adds entertainment value. Like if I wanted to go read a novel, I'd go ask Loke for his life story.
Why let the rogue check for traps when the barbarian can do it for you?
It's
He's going to set it off, but you'll know if there's a trap.
I mean, it's better that one person suffers than all the rest of the party
Unless
doesn't
you-
get a laugh at.
Unless you drop a wall of ice on top of the entire party.
Yeah, well, you know what? Let's
Depends
not
on the
set back
trap,
traps. I don't know. It's crazy, man. Trying to like ponder on the idea of a professional DM because, like I said, we've never had one. We've always. I wouldn't pay him to run a campaign just because I'm not giving the bard. I'm not giving the bard any more credit than he doesn't deserve. But
You pay me with compliments and friendship.
if you had to argue against yourself of hiring a professional DM, and I know that's kind of like a weird question, but I think it's something that a lot of people don't ever think of. Like, why should I have to argue against myself? I want people to come here, but is there any way you would argue that, well, here's where you don't need a professional DM versus why you should have one?
Well, as someone who's trying to make this my living, trying to think of ways why this is a good reason, you're always thinking of why this is a bad reason. I myself, I said this is the time and place where you can begin to make a living off of being a professional dungeon master. But I think even now, even post-pandemic, when the surge of online play sort of kind of blew up with TTRPGs, I think even now, when people still think about paying money to have someone run the game for them when they could just get a buddy to run it for them or run the game themselves, could be a weird idea. To me, I am a professional DM, and when I think, would I ever pay money to go play in a game? No. Why would I? First off, I don't have I wouldn't have the money to play my own games.
This is where we kind of get back to that thing. We don't make a whole lot. We just really enjoy what we do.
So yeah, I think the biggest thing is, as I said before, you're going to find a whole range that's going to run the game in terms of how much you're going to pay to have a professional DM. And certainly there are probably plenty of DMs out there that you could play in smaller campaigns or one-shots that are going to be affordable to you. But I think the first barrier of entry is this could be an expensive hobby if you want to pay.
Oh, man. What did we say? The average? We said this, I think, last episode. They're like, what's the average cost to start playing with people is like $100? Because you got the 3 books you absolutely have to have. DM's Guide, Player's Handbook, and maybe the Monster Manual. And it's like $75, not to include your dice and anything like that. I mean, you don't need dice. You can play with a deck of cards. It's still that's
They
one
don't
way.
even need the books.
D&D in general has always had a low cost of entry, but it's always had a high threshold if you really want to spend the money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have our friends over at Red Dragon Miniatures, but to buy miniatures, buying 3D maps with light up magnetized configuration stuff, those things will slowly add up over. If you want a different one for every adventure, it's possible. It's something you can do, but it's not something every gaming group is going to be able to afford. But I look at this as that kind of thing because it's like, yes, you can clean your own house, but wouldn't you rather hire somebody else to come in and clean it for you?
Yeah, you got me there. I can't argue with that.
Go to one of these free online platforms that most of the virtual tabletop ones, if you have less than 3 players or whatever, you can actually download their stuff for free and just try to set up one of these online games. Just even though nobody's ever going to play it, just see how long it takes to load in the maps, to match up the grids so that their tokens fit onto those maps, and to load up music, to load up, how much it's going to cost to get all these modules added so that their player character sheets do the automatic roll function stuff the way that they're advertised, because those are all add-on plug-in stuff that they want you to buy that aren't part of that free.
It's called
version.
freemium for a reason.
Yeah.
All right. Freemium.
Yeah, so I can see the appeal if you don't have a live game in person.
I mean,
You don't want to do all that work yourself. Yeah, you hire somebody else to outsource that hard work and just enjoy the fun game. Because
look, I'm gonna say like $25 just to come in and not have to do half of that already sounds like and I'm not just saying that because he's sitting across the glass and I'd like to pay that. No, it's just the idea of not having to do all that just to come in. Now, do you allow the guys to create their own characters?
Any character they want, even homebrew, as long as I give a thumbs up on it.
Okay, see, look, that's already like 90% of the battle right there. I can come in, I can be as creative as I want into the the left and right limits of the DM. Yeah, $25 ain't bad.
yeah, and you compare it to something. It's what 3-4 hour sessions. That's about the same length as going to a movie.
Yeah.
You go to a theater for a movie.
That's true.
What are you paying per ticket price to go into that movie?
Yeah, with two people, probably the same price or more nowadays. Yeah.
Not including drinks and popcorn.
I'm going to be honest. I'm just not going to pay that. I'm just going to go to the drive-in where I know there's a drive-in not too far and just sit across the road. I know their radio station channel, and I can scan and find it if I needed it too.
Yeah, but then you got people like us who are bougie as hell, and we'll go to Studio Movie Grill and pay for the expensive ticket, the expensive drinks.
I forgot you guys got the finer society of lives. Here I am being a pirate and doing it the right way, and you guys are trying to be bougie. I don't know.
What else is a barbarian going to spend his gold on?
Loincloths?
You spend money on that?
Who says I'm wearing loincloths?
Barbarian only needs a single loincloth.
Right.
Man,
if he needs that.
We all Porky Pig over here, so
we don't ask how you spend your money. We know
Porky
how
Pig or Donald Duck on this side of the glass. So.
Well, and I've been doing this exclusively online. I love playing in person. I think there is a lot that you get out of that you miss in an online experience. But I have to say, doing this not just because I've been doing it professionally, but just streaming as part of having fun and putting it out there on Twitch, I prefer to do it online. And you will find it could be an expensive hobby, but you will find digital tool sets that make things easier. Like among my friend group, we share all of those digital books from D&D Beyond, which is an expensive thing to get into. But with the group sharing, I can go in, and when these people come to join my campaigns and start playing, they'll say, what do I need? Do I need the Dungeon Master's Guide? And I can say, no, I will give you access to everything. We quite literally have, beyond some silly modules like maybe the Rick and Morty module, things that aren't necessary to play, we have all of the content on D&D Beyond, and I just give everyone access to all that content at their fingertips so they can use for my games, or if they're just playing D&D, they can just go access that too. They could use it for their own games if they wanted to.
Once it's linked to your profile, then you have access it till he kicks you out of his game.
So which one of y'all is paying $25 so we have access to all this? We're using my studio. The least y'all could do is pay up. Come on. Pay the guy. Go on.
I have 39 cents in my account. Too many loincloths.
Oh, now you want to spend the money. Of course. Here's something I was thinking about too. And clearly none of us are going to go out there tomorrow and try to be a professional DM. But how does somebody start being a professional DM?
Well, you have to be comfortable with running a game of D&D first off. I don't think you should try and dip your toes in that water if you've never been a dungeon master before, or a game master, or whatever TTRPG you're choosing as your game of choice. And then you need to consider a couple things. First off, are you ready to make a whole lot less money than you were at your 9 to 5? Can you still find some way to pay the bills? And then two, I think the important thing is deciding what platform you're going to run. Are you going to just have people Venmo or PayPal you the money every week? Are you going to try and use a sort of verified platform like Startplaying? And there's a couple different versions of these. There's even Roll20, which is another virtual tabletop, or VTT. They have areas where people can go in and then set these payment games up. And I like Startplaying just because it solves all the payment stuff for you, but there's many ways to tackle it. But you have to think about, how do I want to do this? What platform am I going to use to get these payments? How much am I going to charge people for? Am I going to run a one-shot? Am I going to run a campaign? Is it going to be based off of a module? Is it going to be homebrew that I'm going to have to come up with myself every single week. There's a lot of things that go into it. And how are you going to source your players? How are you going to find people to come play your game? So those are all questions that you probably have to mull through your mind before taking a leap.
Now, does anybody have like a freemium option for use where they can like try before you buy it? Or they got to go to the Twitch mode, God _ mode gaming, GAWD, getting that little bit of Southern accent out of me, _MODE over at Twitch. You can watch them every Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, because we have like listeners all over the country apparently.
I'm sure, yeah.
So, but is there like how do people know that you're going to be the right DM for them? Like that's something, because like I was looking through like Start Playing, and there's not like a video of you or anything like that where people get to see you, like maybe a clip, your best of moments or something.
Well, that's why I link people and always try to mention the Twitch, because all of our VODs on there, they're also uploaded through YouTube, and just say, hey, before you think about playing with me, go watch some of my videos. Go see, and that's a mixture of go see me as a DM and see if that's the type of DM you want, because every group of players is going to be different. They're going to have their own wants and needs out of a Dungeon Master. But 2, go look at the production values for what I do. If you like having cool voices that are going to sound different with a voice mod, or if you like having full color Roll20 maps that you're going to be able to play on with dynamic lighting and stuff, go take a look and see that those features are there, and I use them pretty liberally. And if that's something you like, I then typically do it in such a way that if you come to play a game with me, your first session is going to at least be half price, so that gives you, that's a little less of a sting if you come in and play a session and are like, this isn't really for me, but at least, I threw, 12 or something bucks at this guy. So
okay.
Now you've said your Twitch campaign, this is the first one you've done that's been intended to be an open-ended. What is your private DM game campaign average length, I guess is the best way to put it? How many sessions do you plan your private campaigns to be?
Well, since I'm making money off of it, I want it to run until I die. But obviously that's not the case. I have it planned in my mind to be a lengthy campaign that would run players from level 3 through 10, but also letting them know if people are still having fun, if they don't want the story to end, if they want sort of a season 2 of our campaign to keep on going, then they certainly could. I'm not going to tell them no. But the idea is 3 through 10, and the style is a little more akin to some of the previous campaigns that you would see on our Twitch, where certainly there's a lot of player agency that can choose to go wherever they want, but I sort of have like, here's your big decision on where the next arc is going to be going and what's going to be happening there, and you can do some fun stuff in between there, but that's going to be sort of the general ideas. You're heading to this planet or this place, and we're going to spend a good couple sessions with you playing there. That way I know what to prep coming next. That's generally how I handle it.
So you're not like one of those DMs that takes bribes so I can get you to go where I need you to go, so I get the cool storytelling. If everybody else is paying $25, but I pay $25, and we go take off on the wonderful pirate ship.
I haven't had it happen yet, but I may strongly consider having the ship just be blocked by some form of asteroid belt that they have to go in a separate direction.
Hear that? You can buy DMs. Everybody thought that wasn't a thing. Bribe your DM, folks. It's worth it.
That's true of non-professional DMs.
I'm not bribing you. I know where you live.
Why do you think people bring food and drinks and special stuff for their DM
snacks
at the home games?
Hell, I've done stuff for a crisp high five. Come on now.
The boss dies. Sure, give me a high five.
Now you have that bag of holding. And speaking of bag of holding, I want to get into this because this I think is awesome. Like I love the stuff that you guys do over at God Mode, but I think this is going to be this thing right here is going to take off and maybe not even need to be a D&D thing. It's probably going to be its own thing eventually. The world of Weirdkin. It's the bag of holding monsters, I think is what the Baja monsters or something. I don't know. But this thing is crazy, man. You got to tell us about this.
So this isn't something I've been doing some preparation, kind of DM prep on Twitch for this, but I haven't really come out and fully announced this or anything. But my thought process was, you see a lot of these Twitch streams, and they have content out there where they're playing D&D, and that's a lot of fun, and many of them have ways that you can interact. That's what we do primarily on our channel. But I've been seeing a lot of these different people, and this has just sort of also been a curiosity of mine, of streamers who are DMs who play with their Twitch chat. And I thought, well, that's kind of fun, and it's probably a condensed form of Dungeons and Dragons, but that'd be a lot of fun to play with. And I also have a love of monster catching games. I was right at that sort of right age range when Pokemon came out, and you had Monster Rancher and Digimon and all of that good stuff. So I've always had a love of that. And it was over the week that the hurricane ran through, because we're Florida bound, so we had to deal with that, and the electricity was out. It's the hot Florida heat. I'm sitting there in my underwear, and I'm just playing on my phone because that's the only thing that has power. And there's this website that, because there's AI technology out there that's been growing and gaining traction where you can create art through AI and algorithms, I'm using a text to Pokemon site that is generating unique creatures that sample art online and merge it together to make its own thing. And I'm thinking, this is really cute. I could just generate a whole bunch of these. And then I started thinking, why don't I do, because I've always been curious and want to do this, why don't I do a game that is using the D&D rule set, but a condensed version that's more primarily focused on just the combat aspects. So the barrier of entry is you just need to know the basics of D&D and the combat. And then just the basics of any monster catching game. If you played Pocket Monsters or anything close to that, if you know different types and the whole rock, paper, scissors gimmick that is seen in a lot of these monster catching games. And this is something that'll be, you'll already have an ease of entry to this. And I said, why don't I try to create my own thing that gathers a lot of inspiration from a number of different sources? The Bag of Holding Monsters. There was a full,
TM.
There was a full Pokemon 5e that was being developed by a guy named Joe the DM. And unfortunately, he made the huge mistake on slapping the actual brand name on there and got the terrible C&D. But he'd put so much work into shifting and hacking the game so that he could add all these Pokemon in there, all these moves. And I thought, why, this poor guy, he's done all this work. Why don't I use this as inspiration? Why don't I pull from this? But of course, change it, tweak it, make it my own thing so it's not really related, but has elements of that and plenty of other kind of monster catching-ish tabletop rules, and create my own thing that people can come to Twitch, in Twitch chat. They can get their own little monster. This does take place in the D&D world because it uses D&D rules, but what your character looks like doesn't matter. Whether you're a tabaxi or whatever, none of that matters because these are condensed rules. All that matters is the weirdkin, or this monster you're going to hatch out of an egg, how it grows, how it develops, and you can interact on the stream by going into these dungeon delves and finding other eggs and items, as well as maybe taking your team of monsters and maybe forming a group. And maybe we have a stream where Group A fights Group B, and we just kind of see who's got this superiority, and I can hand out fun rewards to whoever the winner is and stuff like that. So that's my new pet project.
I see that, but and you were talking about, it doesn't really matter what your race is because you are in the D&D, but I was like reading down here, Weirdkin in the Weirdkin Advancement and Leveling, because I'm looking at the PDF you sent me. Unlike most standard D&D games, players will only be controlling and leveling their Weirdkin. So are they actually playing as a character, or are they playing as their Weirdkin?
They're going to be in the chat. They're going to have maps that they're either battling on or exploring, and then they're going to basically tell me, just like you would in D&D, okay, on my turn, I want to move here, I want to do this, or I want to use this move, and they're going to be controlling their monsters, their Weirdkin. They're not going to be controlling a player race or class from D&D. It's just going to be the monsters themselves.
It's pretty cool. And then I'm looking here.
So Joe the Tabaxi may have a fly-shaped Weirdkin, and he's throwing out that fly-shaped Weirdkin to do battle for him.
Right.
And he's standing back and shouting, what moves to do. I
went and rented a server so that I could run Python code, because the website that you generated each of these AI Pokemonish characters on eventually started charging you by the process that it took, and it was becoming expensive. So I rented my own server so it could run the Python code, and I went through and generated 200 plus critters, and I'm now going through the process of taking these rules that I pulled from different sources and statting them out as you would with similar to sort of like a Pocket Monsters game, but also D&D. As you saw there, there's the whole levels 1 through 20. It's very similar to what you would get as benefits as you hit a new level. You know, you can either get an ability score improvement. There's the sync bonus, which is if you're using a move of a certain affinity that is the same as yours, it does extra damage. So the language is very similar if you're familiar with those two forms of media of D&D and monster catching.
Now, is it like, Pokemon where you're going to have that certain ones evolve at certain times and like different things, like certain types you'll have a evolution line that, one will evolve into like 8 different ways except for poison, which is dumb because poison's the best type.
You're going to start off with an egg, and I think I'm going to do it to where maybe you have to like wait 1 real life hour. That way I don't have a whole bunch of people coming into the chat getting these monsters that I'd have to spend time generating the stats for, and then they just leave 5 minutes later. So you get your egg. There's going to be some waiting period that you hang out in the chat. It's going to hatch. It's going to be a neo form, which is sort of like the infant or baby form. You go through one single battle with that, and then they're going to begin to evolve or transform into these more powerful versions that I've gone through and made.
So now is it all linear, or is it like Digimon where they go up and then they come back and then they go up and then come back?
Well, that's part of the thing. So it's been interesting trying to think, how would you adapt a Pokemon style game into D&D? And I've always wanted to run something like that just in my private games with my friends. But part of the issue that I always had in my mind was, the way that this system is built, the rock, paper, scissors, the battling, it's not really built as a makeup of a role-playing game for you to play with your friends, right? If you're fighting a gym leader or something, you're going to be doing that by yourself while your friends maybe just sit on the benches watching you play.
Go team us.
Yeah, and you can role play, but it doesn't really lend itself well to that experience. But I thought, well, if we condense this, if we just keep it what it is, which, any of these monster raising games usually has a pretty involved battle system, you could just do that in D&D. You could cut away, trim the fat, and have it just be a game where you're controlling your monster and they're battling. Either they're battling me as the NPC going through a dungeon delve, or you're battling an NPC controller that has their own creatures, or maybe you're battling your friends, your real-life friends, as you go along. And yeah, I thought about how to make this interesting so that 2 people who get or hatch the same exact creature, how that's going to be different for them. And there are things that I've included, like some of them have different cosmetic appearances. Some of them will transform. So you guys remember having Digimon?
Yes.
You remember or even Tamagotchi, I guess. They
Yeah.
would have the growth tree. It'd start as this one single thing, but the branching thing that it could grow into just got more and more involved.
Look, Tamagotchis were these little cool things that, kids loved back in the 90s. I know you're ancient, but...
Yeah. I think you guys are all too young for Tamagotchis.
No, we're right at the perfect age. Yeah. You're the one that's ancient. Yeah. So they can change it, because I've been delving through. Like I said, I got the PDF. So when this comes out, you guys are going to want to listen to us here at Chef Bolgg and the Pirate Captain's recipes for everything, because we're going to have all the information when it comes. Because this is awesome, man. I like looking through it. I like the fact that you don't black out and they return you to the Pokemon Center. You just kind of like sit and wait for the next. Is it like wait for the next labyrinth? Can somebody revive you? Like, what's going on with that?
I'm still playing around with the rules. Part of the interesting thing of trying to do this in Twitch is just like in normal D&D. If I get a Twitch chat that has even 10 people in it and all 10 want to play, you obviously can't really run a sustainable game like that. That's tough if they were sitting all around your real life. That's nearly impossible if you're trying to have them communicate what they want to do through Twitch chat. So we're going to have 3 different ways that we can play. One of them is I can have up to 4 people come with me in a delve. And I built a queue system. There's an extension in Twitch that allows you to have like a queue you can set up. People who join the queue, they can use Twitch bits to help support the channel, maybe bump up their rank in the queue to play sooner. But basically, I'm going to take the 4 in the queue. We're going to run through either a dungeon delve or they're going to fight an NPC trainer. And the other thing is I have contests that the whole chat could involve themselves in, which is just basically like, hey, there's this particular job that is going to be a contest for everyone. You're just using a specific skill. Pick your little monster that's going to be proficient with that. We're all going to roll dice in the chat. I've set it up so that you can roll dice in the Twitch chat. Whoever rolls the highest is going to win that. So there's a mixture of ways that I'm trying to engage everyone in chat, but of course there are limitations with D&D. And I think part of the thing that I'd also like to branch off of this is to create this as a separate Start Playing game. So if people are having fun, if this does get bigger, if we get a bigger audience. Right now I'm a pretty small streamer, so my audience is just that nice handful of people who probably could come play. But in the case that this does get larger and get bigger and more popular, I could do a Start Playing game where people, if they had fun on the stream, but they're like, yeah, I didn't really get a chance to play with you though. I tried to join the queue and wasn't able to get picked that day. I can say, well, hey, if you're willing to pay a little money, I will run a game for you and just this select group of 4 or so people.
There it is, tying it back in.
Level up your creatures, and then you can take those same creatures or characters and come back to the stream and say, hey, I got a little higher level guy because I paid a little extra, and my skills are stronger, and now I can go fight other people. So there's a whole lot of ways that I'm trying to tie this in, make it monetarily viable too.
I could see that. I mean, I feel like you could pay and be like a gym leader level trainer and stuff like that, and everybody's got to fight you, and that'd be cool. Like there's like you're saying, endless opportunities on this. I was just digging through. Now you have contests. Now you are, like you said, you're playing the Weirdkin, but your race really doesn't matter. But are there interactions for certain races that may benefit? Is that a plan, or is that a thought that you may have had coming through?
There's no races or classes, but every one of these creatures, these Weirdkin, has a variety of different traits. If you want to back out of this document here into the Google Drive, you'll see in one of the folders, that one there, you're going to see a stat block for one of these. And it's going to visually look different, but when you start reading, this is going to be essentially the stat block that you'd see in D&D. They have all the same ability scores that a character would. They're going to have their AC, HP, and that's all going to be different depending on what creature it is. They have 18 different affinities that, just like in D&D with the vulnerabilities and resistances, is going to be very similar in scope depending on what their affinities are. They have traits that each one can get a different trait. So 2 people who grab and hatch the same exact creature are going to have a difference in that we're going to having a different attitude that's going to raise or lower their stats. They're going to have a different trait, which gives them a special ability. There's going to have move pools. As they level up, they're going to get specialized moves that are going to be different from one that I have versus one that someone else has. So everyone is going to have this kind of unique little creature that is not exactly a full-on D&D character, but hopefully will work for something condensed and easy to play, as like doing it through the Twitch chat.
What's this chain trait thing? I was reading that because you were talking about traits. I had trait 1, trait 2, but what's a chain trait?
So this is my way again to make this financially viable. There are a couple different extensions for Twitch that will allow you to buy either what are called skills or cards. There's things like Dixper, there's things like Stream Loots. And these are primarily used for people who one of the big games on Twitch is Dead by Daylight or horror games, and people can go through these extensions and buy these cards that they'll support the streamer by buying these cards, and each one of these packs will have 3 different little cards in it. And when they play a card, it'll make a zombie pop up on the streamer's screen, and the zombie will yell, and the streamer will yell, and a lot of them are stupid, like, draw your name on my face. And I just thought, why don't I monetize this card system, but let's build it for this monster raising game? Why don't we have card packs? But the card packs do, instead of that silly thing of like, make me eat a banana on the stream or something that just...
You would like that, wouldn't you, Loke?
We'll have things that will help you unlock the full potential of your characters. So, for example, the chain trait or the chain move pool, you could go and raise a creature and play this game completely free by interacting on Twitch, but you can also go and use this card system I'm going to develop and have running through, I'm pretty sure, Streamloots. You go and support the channel, spend a little bit of money. You get these cards that are randomly given to you through these different packs. And it'll be stuff like now you can unlock the chain move of your creature, which is maybe a little bit stronger or better from a utility perspective for your character. So that's why I've kind of set it so that people can come and play for free, have fun. If they're enjoying it, they can maybe toss some coins to their Witcher style thing.
All right. We've been talking with our friend Jason. He is the game master for God Mode Gaming, GAWD_mode, MODE. You can find him every Friday. That's when the main session is, 8 p.m. Eastern, where he streams Lucent Odyssey. And that best entertainment you're going to have outside of who wants to watch Netflix or anything more. Try these streamers. Try YouTube. Content creators, they're all out there. He's been working on this great project called Weirdkin. He is a professional game master, and that's the big thing that we wanted to have in today, man. You've got so much content going for me. I can't wait to kind of keep plugging you guys out like we have been. This has been awesome. You guys got anything else for him? No? All righty. Well,
covered all the bases.
Oh, did we?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then let's knock it out with a home run then. This is Chef Bolgg and the Pirate Captain's Recipes for Everything. I am the Pirate Captain. Make sure you guys find us on Facebook, Chef Bolgg and the Pirate Captains. BolgandPC@gmail.com. Got it right.
There you go.
Yeah. We've been talking with Jason. With that being said, say goodbye, Bolgg.
Goodbye, Bolgg.
Say goodbye, Loke.
See ya.
Bye, guys.
We appreciate you listening to Chef Bolgg and the Pirate Captain's Recipes for Everything, featuring Loke the Bard, of course. Make sure you go find us on Facebook to see what old concoctions Bolgg is cooking up in the kitchen. And if you want your emails read, then email us at bolgandpc@gmail.com. And as always, happy adventures. Yarr.